Ding, 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 ding. Good evening, YouTube. Hello. Welcome to Moon Magic and Mindfulness with Grace. Live every moon day at 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Let's talk about the week ahead. Let's talk about the fact that it's already Scorpio season. What? Time flies, y'all. Time really does fly. I mean, there's a few of us that have been gathering here every Monday since the year started, right? Get it? Because we started last year, season 1. And I remember so many conversations, yet the year is almost at a close. It just, I don't know. I feel like I've been saying this a lot, but it really does fly. So here we are, October 23rd, and so much has happened in the last 2 weeks. So much has been revealed, I feel like, just in the last month, collectively speaking. And this full moon is going to shed light on a lot of other things. But the thing is, the kicker, right? That's what I like to say. All these phrases that I throw out there, actually, as you know, or maybe you don't know because you're new here, I grew up in Puerto Rico watching TV, and that's how I learned English. So when I say that the full moon is the kicker of the week, I must have grabbed that from like a TV show. So I hope that I, use it where it needs to go. But this full moon in Taurus with the eclipse and then Scorpio season, it's the recipe for shedding light into the deepest of wells and seeing what's there, right? And that can be collectively. And you know what I was thinking when I was like revising my notes, right? I have my Moon Magic and Mindfulness with Grace journal, but I also have my daily journal where I take all kinds of notes. That's the one that I tend to really just drive around with or put in my bag or whatever. And, Chani Nicholas, right? The 2 podcasts that I love to reference and recommend and quote are Jessica Laniado's Ghost of a Podcast, and then Chani Nicholas, the Astrology of the Week Ahead podcast. And I love how Chani mentioned that secrets will be revealed, right? And the first thing I thought was Britney Spears' book that's coming out on the 27th and Taylor Swift's album that's coming out on the 27th. And I did not know, but it did flow into my periphery that apparently Kanye West is also releasing or doing something that was supposed to be some other date, but then he changed it to 10/27 to be on the same day as 1989 Taylor's version. And all of that is happening at the culmination of this week, which is the culmination of a cycle, right? Because it's the full moon. But it's also the culmination of this entire cycle that I was so grateful that Chani brought it up, because I mentioned in last week's episode and the episode before that eclipse season, it's a 6-month bracket. And I still have to elaborate about this on my Tech Talk. And I'm so grateful for James and my sister. They both asked what was eclipse season. And I promise I will post that before the lunar eclipse. But all in all, eclipse season is it depends on how you see it, right? Because last new moon solar eclipse that we had 2 weeks ago was the kind of bookend to the eclipse on April 20th. And then this full moon lunar eclipse is also the bracket to the eclipse that we had in May. However, I was very grateful because Chani reminded us that this new moon in Taurus with the lunar eclipse is not going to happen again for another few decades. And it's closing a chapter from November 2021. So the question becomes, where were you 2021? What were you doing? What was your mindset? Right. And because I am an ICF certified coach, and I, if given the chance, turn everything into a coaching conversation, because they can be just so productive and so revealing, right? And so encouraging as well. And so those are the 3 questions that I'll be asking myself, aside from the questions that we have in the book, because of course, let's get to the book and let's also check on astroseek.com. As you know, my favorite reference. I don't know an astrologer out there who doesn't use astro/seek.com. So if you are curious about all of this work, then I recommend AstroSeek. This is how it looks, and this is where I love to check where the moon is for all of us. And, I'm so excited for next year's agenda, because my baby sister, bless her heart, she came up with a hashtag more magical. Get it? More. Because I really wanted to do a lot of, add a lot of the astrology that we discussed all of this year following this book, the 2023 agenda. A lot of the astrology is not written in the book, but it will be next year. And I am so excited. And so far, I'm almost done, but so far it's a lot of the moons that are important, like new moons, full moons, first quarters and last quarters, are all happening on Thursday next year. And I just love observing those things and already putting those dots together. It's going to be so amazing and magical. Okay, so it is October 23rd, and we start the week with the moon in Aquarius, like I told you earlier, and the first day of Scorpio season with the moon in Aquarius. I mean, it's about that autonomy, I feel like, right? Like I said in my morning call, Aquarius is all about emotional freedom. And so what is your deepest desire that you now want to express on today, the very first day of, Scorpio season, right? Transformation is also one of the themes this season, always, right? Scorpio is very transformational. But why, Graciela? Why is Scorpio transformational? Well, like I said earlier, it is in the deepest of your own personal what's there, and usually that implies negativity, because what's in the dark, right? Secrets, shame, complexes, insecurities, right? Doubts, just anger, frustration, the opposite of light, right? And all that implies in terms of mental health, as well. Like, this is just day one. And also I'm excited that day one of a season is on a moon day. That, as you know, that just, tickles me so. But on day one, to be able to have this conversation on day one of the season that is so transformational to me is very special, because last year I remember us talking about Scorpio season and how dark it was collectively, and how we were a few of us. I had so many conversations on Twitter, now X, and here on Moon Magic and Mindfulness with all of you, about seasonal depression and about last year was the first year where I ever had public conversations with a room of 100 people on Twitter about depression. I had never really had those conversations open, for the public. And all of that happened during Scorpio season. So those are small changes that can be big or can be small depending on how you see them. But at the end of the day, when you dig deep and you dig through the rubble, something is bound to be shown. You're bound to meet, encounter, be faced with, right? Not necessarily get stung or bitten, but if it hurts, then it might as well be a sting, right? And so the point is, at the end of the day, the discomfort is what's going to point us to what needs work. I believe that 100%, or maybe not 100, but still, I think like 8 out of 10 times the discomfort that you feel points towards something that needs change. So that's for you to make with whatever you want to make with of that. Make with that. Did I say that right? I hope I did. But we follow the moon in Aquarius to Pisces, and then by Thursday it'll be in Aries, and we end the week with the moon in Taurus Saturday and Sunday, and that's when the eclipse happens on Saturday, right? So I feel like Pisces might be a bit of a balming effect during this week of us diving deep, right? Because that's the season we're in. And the sun shedding light on all of these deep topics, hopefully during the Libra season, some of the, going back and forth between decisions, between values, between all the things that Venus points out in Libra, right? Hopefully those decisions don't come into question now, right? I feel like those are some of the things that may come up. And with everything that's happening with Mercury still in Scorpio as well, and Mars still in Scorpio as well, then that just to me paints a picture of word vomit. I can't be any more frank than that. Word vomit in the worst way, like not in a cute, embarrassing way, like I'm so nervous that I can't stop talking, but you're still going to think it's cute because, we're on a date. No, that's not what I mean. I mean, word vomit as in deep, aggressive, angry, shameful, all the things that I highlighted earlier as themes, then you put together with the theme of conversations and anger, Mercury, Mars in Scorpio. And that just doesn't sound very appetizing to me. It also reminds me, well, hello, Mr. Hakeem. Welcome to Moon Magic and Mindfulness with Grace. We're talking about how Mercury and Mars are in Scorpio, and today is day 1 of Scorpio season. And so that I am anticipating hard, aggressive conversations, because that's just what those things highlight, what those planets highlight, right, in terms of themes. So this is what I love about having this conversation every week, is that it allows us to kind of see what's coming and then better prepare, obviously, right? I feel like that's the point of divination, astrology, looking into the Bible to see how your day is going to be, or however you like to do that. The first song that comes in the radio when I get in the car is going to be the mood for the day. That's the same thing, right? So, with Scorpio, so that's all of that, right? Mars, Mercury, and Scorpio. And the point of that is how can you better prepare to have those difficult conversations? Every time Mercury is involved, it's about conversations, right? It is about also your inner thoughts and your inner conversation. So words matter. And thank you for all of the love. You're welcome to say who's here and welcome. And I love you all for coming. So words matter. Say what you need to say, but mean it. And if you don't mean it, don't say it. And here's the reminder, the ultimate reminder, because I feel like sometimes we have these conversations and we know what's going to happen, or we know what to do to prepare, and we do prepare, and that's great. And then the shoe drops. And if you are expecting everyone else to be as prepared as you, then first of all, it's not in your control. And second of all, unless you personally invite them to this conversation, or to the Ghost of a Podcast by Jessica Lanietto, or to the Chani Astrology of the Week Ahead podcast, right? So that they know what's coming, then you're not, it's not up to you how they react. And so if you prepare, then you might not be the one bringing up that hard conversation. You might not be the one causing the argument. So prepare to be the one on the receiving end then. Add that to your strategy. Don't just think, well, my strategy is going to be to, and actually, if you think about it, if you go at it in that way, see, here's the thing, magic is all about intention, isn't it? Right? If you go at this week thinking, my strategy for this week is going to be to just bottle it up and not speak. I'm not going to bring up any frustrations. I'm not going to cause an argument because I don't want, right, the anger or the whatever. And if you've been following me for a long time, you know that a lot of my work has to do with survivors of abuse and the context of toxic abuse, narcissistic abuse, and all of that, domestic violence, right? And so you might want, looking at a week ahead like this one with Mars and Mercury and Scorpio and the Sun in Scorpio as well, and the lunar eclipse and the full moon. I mean, think about it. That just sounds like an apocalyptic movie. And honestly, if you are here and you're one of my Swiftie besties, then this week is just one of my proofs as a Swiftie that she has a group of astrologers working for her, or she just does this like we do, like on our own time, right? Like maybe she spends time on astro.c.com, right? But 1989 coming out on 10/27 with all of these things happening, it's just way too much of a coincidence to me, right? Because a lot is gonna come out that day, right? With those songs and what the songs say and who they are about. And I can't wait to discuss all of that with you all, right? So the moon in Pisces is the perfect opportunity to do that divination work. We've talked about this before. Pisces being so fluid. That means if for those of us that are in tune, that have a relationship with spirit, that have a spiritual practice, that want to connect, that do journaling, so on and so forth, then the moon in Pisces is, I feel like, one of those great opportunities to start organizing those thoughts and paying attention to what flows through, because it will be quick. And so do you have a notepad available, right? If you are really into taking those notes and following the breadcrumbs, that's what I call them in my practice, right? The breadcrumbs, they may come at any moment and you may not know what they mean. See, the thing about the eclipse season is that things that came up in the previous eclipse 6 months ago may not have made sense the previous 6 months between now and then 6 months ago, but now will make sense. Why? Because it closes the cycle. The same way that if you look back on November 2021 with the eclipse that happened in Taurus then, and how now 2 years later we're closing a 24-month chapter of eclipses, that's a bigger season. And the fact that another full moon eclipse in Taurus is not going to happen for another few decades. I think Chani said 2 decades, but I don't want to quote it like that, so I'm just going to say few, because as you know, this show is not scripted and this is all in my memory. So after Pisces comes Aries, and this is where this full moon gets interesting. That happens right after Aries because the North Node is in Aries. So let's revisit that. The North Node, I like to imagine them as the North Pole and South Pole of the moon, and the moon is rotating in this axis. And so that's how I imagine it. Don't quote me on that. I'm not like a science teacher. So I journal using your book every day. Thank you, Hakeem. Yes, and I'm so excited about next year's book. It is going to be #more magical. Credit to my baby sister who came up with the hashtag more magical. I'm so excited. So North Node in Aries. Let's revisit that. So the moon rotating, and at the end of the day, the North Node and the South Node connect into what astrologers believe to be your fate line, right? So think about the North Node as your North Star, where you would magnify your highest potential, where your higher self is, lending down a hand to pull you towards. And then the South Node is previous life, if you believe in that, or lessons that karma, if you want to believe in that as well, right? There's just so many different beliefs and they're all kind of the same, right? But they call things differently. And so the South Node right now is in Libra, talking and reminding us and kind of bringing our attention always back to community, relationships, balance, or lack thereof, right? The elusive balance. And whatever Libra stands for, everything that Venus stands for as well, because Venus rules Libra, right? And then the North Node right now is in Aries, a sun sign, fire sign, right? A mutable sign, which means there's fluidity to that as well. It's not contained much like an earth sign like Taurus, right? And so Aries, if Libra is us, then Aries is me. Me. See, I did talk about this a few episodes ago. So Aries, Thursday and Friday, with the moon in Pisces right before that. Hopefully we get some juicy dreams with the moon in Pisces that you might want to make some notes about. Maybe ask your cards in the morning or look through your Bible if you want to connect that to your dreams, or if you even care to make sense of your dreams. The moon in Pisces can be very productive. And so that's going to be Tuesday. Tuesday and Wednesday. And then Thursday and Friday, the moon is in Aries. And it's already going to be a lot of emotion because it's for the lunar eclipse and the full moon. And as you know, all energy is magnified during the full moon. But if you add to that a lunar eclipse, it's just more. It's more. And it's interesting that Chani Nicholas mentions that Jupiter is sitting along with the moon, and that's great, but Jupiter magnifies everything. So if it's going to magnify the positive and bring in a lot of help, it is also going to magnify the negative. Hello, Mel. I'm so happy that you're here. We're so excited. Good morning to you in Australia. I hope you have a beautiful day today. So the North Node leading up to this lunar eclipse, it's just going to kind of remind us to, I feel like, try to see what's being shed light on, right? Because the moon can shed light all at once. But if I don't choose to see it and acknowledge it and put a name to it and believe it and do something about it, then it's just there. And it'll be there again, probably, if not next full moon, then certainly next eclipse 6 months from now. And this is how you know. I feel like eclipses are great to really kind of keep tally on your growth, personal, spiritual, financial, educational, what do you want to call it? Creative growth, right? Where are you creatively now? If you're an artist, if you're a writer, where are you creatively now than compared to, let's say, 2 years ago when the new moon in Taurus was happening with the lunar eclipse at the same time, or the full moon, sorry, right? And here's the thing. I've been there in the mental loop or in the mental spinning wheel, and I'm totally the hamster, just spinning there, spinning there, spinning there, spinning there. I've been there in the seasons of, man, I really want to write a book, or I really want to do this, or I really want to create this one thing. Heck, I still have so many projects lying around, right? And so all of those things that you say you want to do, but that you haven't done anything about, all of that will come up during a week like this one, because Scorpio is that depth of character of the shame. So if you're ashamed about the things that you have started that you haven't finished, be aware that you might feel a lot of discomfort this week. And if you feel a lot of discomfort about the things that you have started that you haven't finished, for whatever reason, right? There's so many reasons. At the end of the day, I like to look at things and be like, you know what? The number one reason why that's not getting done is hashtag priorities. It's not a priority. And I am okay with that project not being a priority. And once I acknowledge that, the project doesn't have power over me anymore, and it will stay there forever. And hopefully it one day gets done. And if it doesn't get done, most likely whenever we move away, the project will go away with the house. No shame. Can you say the same? And if not, then maybe that's one of the things that we can get to, right? Scorpio is all about transformation because of that depth of character that it's going to bring up, and because of all of the secrets that it might reveal, right? Along with the full moon. And it's an odd and precarious way to start the season, but I feel like it's long overdue because of what's happening collectively. Because my hope when it comes to the collective environment, my hope is that truths will be revealed that really move the wheel forward globally, pro people, pro the collective. However, that's kind of Libra, right? The collective, that's kind of Libra. That's not so much Aries, thinking about the 1%, right? That doesn't look very hopeful for the collective. Hello, Adam. Thank you for being here. But I'm still hopeful. I will always be hopeful, right? But let's not get political. We will not get political. But at the end of the day, that's the astrology of the week. And I know that we will survive it. I, knock on wood, hope that we will all be safe. And, you know, we will be back next week to talk about how we thought it was going to be this huge deal, and it ended up not being that big of a deal, right? That's my hope. But I do love to talk about the what ifs, because what if the things we do discuss actually happen? Actually, the question would be, how many times have we not talked about things? And then when we check in, I like to check in with a lot of you around Thursday or Friday by the end of the week, wink. So that y'all can give me your updates on how the week went according to what we talked about here, right? Because that's the whole point of the book, and it's been so fun to follow along. So we starting the week with a waxing gibbous in Aquarius. Your emotions provide great insight. That is so Aquarius, right? Your emotions provide great insight. And starting this season, you will feel a lot. As you know, in this book, we have affirmations every moon day and affirmations for the full moon. So today, the affirmation is, I satisfy my emotional needs with compassion. Do you even know what your emotional needs are? Like, you have to think outside the box. If you don't even know what you don't know about emotional needs, then I suggest you start with a very light, rabbit hole dive into a Google search. What is emotional needs? Or better yet, get even more specific in your questioning to Google and say, what are some examples of ways to satisfy emotional needs? And see what Google says about that. Because, we're all sensitives here. We're neurodivergents here. We're ADHD here, right? We're ADHDers. We are psychic empaths. We have this spectrum of personalities, and what that just opens up the conversation to is a buffet, a plethora of coping mechanisms and soothing mechanisms and tastes and likes and dislikes. And so I can talk about journaling all day. I can talk about how sometimes when I am, sometimes when I put my child to bed, the one thing I can do, because I just don't have the bandwidth for anything else, is to get under my covers. And some people like weighted blankets. I'm good enough just under my covers. But do you need a weighted blanket? When you're under your covers, do you need your one leg to stick out? Right? Do you absolutely need to have a fan to calm down because you think you like the fan, but maybe you find the sound soothing? See, like, we don't even know the sensitivities that we have if we don't think about them. Why do you like the fan on you? Is it the sound, or is it the cold, right? Or is it the breeze? So many things. I don't like those window AC units because I'm sensitive and it is way too loud, to the point that after a few hours, I just cannot think. All I hear is the buzzing from the AC unit, right? So I know this. I have put my awareness on it. I have named it. I have believed it. And now I'm going to figure out what to do about it. Well, I never turn that AC on, and it's only on while we are asleep. And if I wake up at 6 a.m., I turn it off. It doesn't matter if other people are sleeping. So those little quirks, let's call them quirks because we're kind and compassionate, right? Those kinds of quirks are all sensitivities, right? The other day, Ron, our good friend Ron, posted on the X app, Twitter, a little video of these hands, because we'd never see the subject, but these hands are cooking. And so every time that the hand does one thing, it goes and it washes these three fingers under the sink. And then it comes back to the cutting board and it cuts something else. And the other shot is always so intermittently, yay. One shot is doing something in the kitchen, and the next step is to wash these three fingers. And I asked I asked Ron, he didn't reply, but I did reply to his post and commented that if he does this, if he finds himself in the kitchen cutting things and then washing the fingers, and then every little step I wash my fingers, that's a sensory thing. That is a coping thing. Hello, Ron. Speak of Ron. There he is. I don't know if Ron remembers that post, but I did comment and I said, if you do this, then that's a sensitivity thing. And for some of us that are really sensitive, I'll raise my hand and say that because I think part of the reason why I've said for so many years that I don't like the kitchen, now I think I really don't like cooking, and it's a sensory thing. So there's a lot that can be said about that. I am very sensitive with my nose, and so I've noticed that I just don't, by the time I'm done cooking, I don't even want the food, and it's because I've been smelling it that whole time. So there's just a lot that comes with these quirks. See, Ron said I'm super sensitive. Aw, Ron. I can hear Jewel singing for you. I'm sensitive and I'd like to stay that way. I love that song. I'll send it to you so you can hear it. That song came out when I was like in 3rd grade. Anyway, so what are your emotional needs? And Graciela, why are you babbling on about sensitivities and about the AC unit? Well, I'm glad you asked. It's been my experience that when I am in sensory burnout, let's call it that, and by that I mean the sensory input is so much that I'm way over hyper sensitive. I'm way over hyper alert. I'm just like, I need to lay down under my weighted blanket, or I need to lay down under my, what do you call it? Cover, right? So that's what I kind of call sensitivity burnout. Autistic people call it autistic burnout. I've heard that term as well. PDA burnout is, I also hear as well, that would be the diagnosis that falls on, my child. And so at the end of the day, if you struggle with those little things like the light or the room or the temperature or the sound, while the moon and the sun and the planets are in Scorpio are also adding to the mix deep emotional instability, then this is why life can be harder for anybody who has any disability, but for neurodivergence specifically, because that's what we're talking about, right? And so this is also why I love all of this awareness, because it allows me to just better prepare. So thank you for that. Thank you so much, Ron. We're going to ring the bell for Scorpio season and move on to the full moon, because as you know, in Moon Magic and Mindfulness with Grace 2023 manifestation agenda / journal, and in next year's as well, you get journal promptings for every full moon and new moon, and you get affirmations as well as the affirmations that you get every Monday. Then you get the page where you can journal and paint over it. We have been doing that all year. Before I created this book, we were journaling and painting on separate sketch notepads, and that was great. I have a few in the room and I have a few in my notepad, but this book has changed my life, and I hope that all of you that got it the first time, I hope it helped, and I hope you're excited for next year's, because I surely am. Okay, so here are your journal promptings for this week's full moon. If you don't follow the book because you don't have it, let me just say this really quick as a housekeeping item. You can either become a Patreon subscriber, and with your collaboration, you're going to get the PDF of the book so that you have it. So This week, the packet that goes out has the PDF file so that you can print it for November, as well as an audio meditation that you get to keep, and a handout that this week I'm very excited about. It's about the chakras and how the affirmations that you use should be different for every chakra. So if you're only focusing on I am statements for all of your affirmations, then you're only working on your root chakra. So if you want to elevate your affirmation work literally, then subscribe as a Patreon subscriber and you'll receive that handout by the end of the week. I'm so excited about that too. So, how am I preparing for the season ahead? I know that we just started Scorpio season, but the season ahead that I'm mentioning is we have the winter solstice coming up soon. We have winter happening soon, and last year I have notes on our conversations, and we did talk about how seasonal depression kind of hit a lot of us, myself included, out of nowhere. It was, for me, it was kind of a curveball, and I have no doubt that it had to do with the fact that I was empathically connected to so many people because I was hosting over 100 people every week with very deep subjects, right? And so now, a year later, I have really established what are my boundaries and what am I willing to kind of push myself to do, or how far am I willing to push myself for all of this content creation slash coaching type of stuff, or how far am I willing to go for my real well-being, peace of mind, and under stimulation instead of overstimulation. I feel like last year we had epic conversations, but it was a lot. It was way too much. And right now, in this season in my life, for example, my subscribers know what's happening with, my family life, right? So if you want to get in on the deets, then you know what to do. But in this season of my life, I have to be way more focused on what's happening with my child. And I just don't have the bandwidth, the energy, or just the creative fuel, if you will, to host 100 people in a room, right? And so, and not that I'm not willing to do it, of course, but it's just a different season altogether. And when I ask, how am I preparing for the season ahead, mentally, physically, and spiritually? That's the first journal question for the full moon this week. I really hope that you take the time to really disclose and number how are you taking care of yourself mentally and how are you preparing for the season ahead. Winter is all about going within. Winter is about stillness. When you are still, you can really observe what's happening. When you are still, you can really just receive. When you are still, you can listen, right? And so all of those things are what nature automatically invites us to do. However, if you get still and everything that you observe is chaos, if you get still and everything that you hear is just not very nice, and if you're still and you're afraid of your own shadow and your own dark, then it will be a rough season ahead. All of that to say, don't be afraid, right? Hashtag don't panic, because we're in it together. And that's the whole point of having these conversations. Yay! I love this little club. Physically, what are you doing to prepare for the season? Physically, did you already get out your bins with winter clothes out of the shed, out of the attic, out of the garage? That's what I mean when I say physically. I feel like when we hear the word physically, we think about working out and we think about the body, but no, like I mean like in the physical realm. How are you getting ready for the season? I like to declutter 100% because we have a tiny house. And so if I feel like the mess has gone on for too long, then that means that there's no room in the closets for things. So is it time to declutter, right? Or get rid of stuff? That's what I mean by physically. And spiritually, that's just always going to be a big question, right? October 31st is a great day to celebrate ancestors, not just because the next day is Dia de los Muertos, but because it's always been that day. That's the whole point of Halloween. And the negative aspect of that is that people were protecting themselves, right? With the little jack-o'-lanterns that used to be turnips back in the day, which actually is a way scarier sight than a jack-o'-lantern. But this is meant to scare or ward off evil spirits, but the same people that believed that they could ward off evil spirits obviously believed that they could invite their ancestors and the spirit of the people that they loved in the same day. Like, the whole point of it is that the veil is thin, and so you have better chances to connect. Doesn't that sound so nice? Like, it makes me want to look forward to Halloween even more because of my grandpa, because of my dad, because of everyone, right? We've talked about my meditations before and how in my sacred garden meditation, I found out after I started practicing my sacred garden meditation that my sacred gardener is my great grandfather. And the only way I know that it's my great grandfather is because he told me, right, in a meditation. And I just love all of this so much. Ron, I love Saturn. Love you to the moon and to Saturn, right? Okay, second question. Gosh, I feel like I'm talking so much, but I was just so excited to have this conversation because I feel like it's one of those weeks. It's going to be one of those weeks. Second question, what is a habit? Oh, this is good. Listen to this. Listen to this. What is a habit that has proven pointless that I could let go of today in order to progress? That's it. I'm just going to drop the mic because here's the full moon trying to shed light on the fact that you may be doing the same thing over and over. And at the same time, see, Ron is commenting a worry. But the thing about commenting worry is that he is aware of it. And if he is aware that he is doing it, Ron, I'm going to have to call you out. If you're aware that you're doing the thing, then what are you going to do about it? What can you do? That's the question. What can you do with the resources that you have, right? I like to keep it real. Oh, Ron says, uh-oh. What can you do with the resources that you have available, right? And for some of us, that may be very little. But at the end of the day, think about mentally, physically, and spiritually. How can you tackle the habit of worrying mentally? So what can you do to get your head distracted? And listen, you're a Capricorn and Pluto is still in Capricorn, so you're worrying. But let me just say that when Pluto moves into Aquarius, that will be a whole generational shift that will be more towards the collective because Aquarius wants, more meditation. Yeah, Sister Marie is also a Capricorn. That's right. And more meditation, Ron. Well, get ready because you're going to receive the meditation this week. And I'm so excited for that. So the meditation this week is going to go together with the handout. So it's going to be the affirmations with all the chakras. So I'm very excited about that. And let's see. The other question is, How am I flowing with the changing season? But let me just say this. If the full moon sheds light on something that you're not ready to deal with, you can always listen. I don't know how y'all talk to yourself, but sometimes my brain does come up with things that then I kind of whisper quietly and hopefully no one's listening. I kind of whisper quietly, like, it's not the time. It's just not the time. Like, hello, darkness, my old friend, not today. Right. And so, honestly, I feel like this is why we go through these seasons of making the same mistakes and, stumbling on the same rock. And how else can I say the same thing? Right? Repeating the same patterns. There you go. 3 ways of saying the same thing. But I believe that the reason why those things keep happening is because we are not kind of in a position to learn that lesson. It's not just that we don't see it. When the student is ready, the teacher appears, but sometimes the teacher is life and the lesson just appears. Do you count that as a lesson because there was no teacher? That's up to you. I do. The teacher is everywhere. The teacher is everything, right? The teacher can be the freaking tree that I just sat down under to take 3 deep breaths. And all of a sudden, I felt a lot better about my life and I don't want to jump off a bridge anymore. Hashtag trigger warning. Sorry for that. But, was there a lesson there? Yes, the tree taught me a lesson. What is that lesson? That life is valuable because I just changed my mind after sitting under the tree. You see what I did there? So, great lesson. That was a great handout too. The teacher is everywhere. That's a handout lesson from my dear coach, Miss Sally Morningstar. I love her so much. So, all of that to say, whatever comes up this week, if it is not the time, if you're not in a position to do something about it, then let yourself know, right? Check yourself in that regard so that then you can also abandon all pressure, so that then you can also surrender all doubt and continue to do what you were doing. Whatever brings you peace, right? Whatever helps you sleep at night. But if you really want to continue shifting and growing and see where life takes you, then that's the whole point of having this conversation, is to look ahead and see where life can take you, but not just take you, see where you can take life. That's the beauty of looking ahead, right? And then the third question is, how am I flowing with the changing season? That's, Aquarius is an air sign, but it is the water bearer. So it just flows. Air flows, right? Air is boundless. So how am I flowing with the changing season? And then affirmations for the new moon. I welcome the changing season and the nurturing energy of preparation. Think about it. I was thinking earlier of how I felt like a snail because I do love snails. I don't mind that they're squishy and sluggish. I loved watching them and kind of like poke, 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 but very lightly. And I always have short nails, so I would never hurt them. And I love how if you, just grab them, they instantly retrieve, and the comfort that that shell brings, right? Along with the crab, the lobster and the snail have also been universal symbols for the moon. And so the fact that the snail came up earlier, I remember it was while I was looking through the astrology of the week and preparing this conversation in my head, and I felt like it may be, for me, I'll only speak for myself because my moon is in Cancer. It may be a kind of warning sign as to how to remedy some of the discomfort that will come this week is to remember what the crab does, what the snail does, and what the scorpion does, which Chani obviously brought up as a reminder, which is to wait. So she's talking about the strategy of the week. One of my favorite words is strategy. So what she means by that is how to approach the conversations, everything I mentioned earlier about Mercury and Mars and Scorpio, along with the Sun in Scorpio this week. But what I mean about the snail and the crab is that they retrieve within themselves. And so really ponder where you stand about things that will come up so that hopefully you can anticipate some of the conversations, or at least really have your finger on where you stand about things so that when these hard conversations are brought up your way, the anger and the frustration and, the word vomit doesn't come from you. That would be my hope, right? Composure, cool, calm, and collected. What will it take for you to be cool, calm, and collected this week? And with that said, I'm so grateful that you all are here. Look at us. Thank you so much. My new friend from TikTok might be here. I don't know if she's here, but Annalise, thank you so much for tuning in and subscribing. Haley, thank you so much for subscribing. I'm just so grateful for all of you. Curious Whimsy, so grateful for you as well. Taryn, Cecily Marie, Cicely Adams and Ron Perry, Peter and Hakeem and Cecilia Grace. Yay! Now let's get to the meditation because y'all, this was so good that it's almost 10 p.m. and we haven't meditated. But thank you so much, Hakeem. I'm so grateful that you're here. Brain FM, get your free trial or 20% off your membership in the link in the bio. Open it up. Lately, I have been going back to the genre of, we're not going to do it now, but I just wanted to say real quick that one of the things I love about Brain FM is that you can change the genre. So like we always do the meditations with the chimes and the bowls. A lot of us in the community have a very specific reason for liking the chimes and the bowls, and it has to do with our dear departed friend, Curtis. But I just like it in general because of a sound bath type of feel. But personally, during my day when I'm listening to Brain FM, which is usually like all day, I've just been revisiting the genre cinematic. And let me just tell you, for those of us that like movies and for those of us that like to kind of live in delusion all the time, the cinematic genre of Brain FM is just that because it is so epic. It's like epic music, but there's no movie. So the movie is my life. And, I'm just easily entertained like that. But let's get to the chimes and the bowls. And because this full moon is going to shed light on so much, and because we are in Scorpio season, and Scorpio is all about the darkest, deepest parts of ourselves, as you breathe and relax and slow down and center yourself in this moment, as you slowly breathe in and out, we are going to go to the garden. So follow my lead as we take some deep breaths to make sure we are grounded and relaxed. Breathe in through your nose Nice and slow, deep breath in through your nose all the way. Hold it at the top. 1, 2, 3, 4. And exhale through your mouth. Long, slow breath all the way till you have no air. Hold it again. 1, 2, 3, 4. And breathe in again, nice and slow. Deep belly breath if you're laying down. Hold it at the top. 1, 2, 3, 4. And breathe out nice and slow through your mouth. All the way long, extended breath. We are not in a hurry. Hold it again. 1, 2, 3, 4. And relax. Breathe in. And if you feel like gasping, just follow that. Take a deep breath and settle into your breath. As you find yourself with whatever sensory gear you need to be in the garden with your hands in the dirt. And if you don't do that, then think about it metaphorically. Because in this moment, in this garden, as we dig our hands through the dirt, tracing the roots of overpowering weeds that do not serve, that do not fit, weeds that don't contribute, weeds of whatever extra in your life is adding to the stress and discomfort, overstimulation, and overall struggle. And in this moment, in this garden, under this full moon, you get to dig deep through that, trace your fingers through those roots, find the very end, and using your whole hand, grab and pull, and it feels so good. That moment when you get to pull a weed with its entire root system, and you know that this was damaging your garden, and you feel what you feel about the weed, and you might even use the weed for tea, right? Because it could be chamomile, it could be dandelion, all these weeds that for sure don't take for granted. But we're not talking about herbalism. We're talking about negative weeds that really don't contribute. And so when you get to really tend to your garden in that way, it is so satisfying, and it only creates more room, hopefully for better seeds later on, right? Hopefully for more productive things to be planted later on. So in this moment, think about what those weeds are that don't contribute, don't self, and just add negatively to your season, mentally, physically, and spiritually. With me, breathe one more time through your nose. Take a deep breath, nice and slow, all the way till you have no room for air. Hold it at the top. 1, 2, 3, 4, and release through your mouth. Long, slow exhale, long all the way. Hold it again. 1, 2, 3, 4, and breathe in again through your nose. Deep breath in all the way. Hold it again. 1, 2, 3, 4, and exhale nice and slow. Long breath out all the way. And as you settle into your exhale, remember, I welcome the changing season and the nurturing energy of preparation. I see and acknowledge and satisfy my emotional needs with compassion. I welcome emotions that allow me to grow. With me, take one last breath in through your nose. Deep breath in all the way. Hold it at the top. 1, 2, 3, 4, and breathe out. Long exhale through your mouth. Hold it again. 1, 2, 3, 4, and breathe in one last time. Deep, 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 deep breath in. Hold it at the top. 1, 2, 3, 4, and exhale. And as you exhale nice and slow, settle into that breath. Bring your awareness back to your body. Wiggle your toes, open your eyes, and come back to me. Peter is here. Peter, you did make it just in time for the meditation, and what an epic conversation that was. Thank you again, Ron, Cecilia, Cicely, Peter, and Hakeem. Thank you so much. If you would love to follow along this journey and receive your morning call every morning so that you know where the moon is and what that means, then follow along on TikTok or Instagram or Facebook, blah, blah, blah. But in the link in the bio here on YouTube, you don't have to go anywhere else. You can access books and merch. With that said, please let me take a sip of water. With my Moon Magic and Mindfulness with Grace, the cute little mug that I designed, and all of the merch is in the link in the bio. You can also book a call for coaching and pre-order next year's book. I'm so excited about it. And yeah, the full moon. We will stay in touch, and we will be back here next moon day to talk about it all. I love you all. Bye. Have a good week.